Katz, and you're listening to Pop Culture Addicts.
Hello, guys, and welcome back to Pop Culture Addicts. I am Tim. I'm your host. This is the show that's built on fandoms, but driven by conversation. I'm your guide to all things awesome in the pop culture universe, or at least that's what I like to tell myself. I'm glad you're here for these conversations. Now, our guest today is a writer and podcaster, also a producer. I want to make sure we put that in there. Writer, producer, and podcaster whose work has helped shape some of the most memorable moments in television and horror. Alan Katz is a screenwriter, most likely best known for his work on the iconic and legendary series Tales from the Crypt, along with his career spanning television, film, and storytelling. Now, today we're going to talk about his origin story, writing for Tales from the Crypt, the art of crafting a great horror story from the writer's perspective. We're also going to talk about Alan's podcasting career, his experiences behind the mic, and I'm sure we'll stumble into some other fun topics along the way. Now, if you're new here, I would encourage you to go ahead and click that like and follow button. I'd hate for you to miss out on future guests because we've got some stellar ones waiting for you in the wings. At this time, though, let's welcome Alan Katz to Pop Culture Addicts. Welcome to the show, Alan.
Thank you, Tim. It is a pleasure to be here.
I'm excited. So for those of you who are maybe not in the podcasting world and are unfamiliar with it, we both are subscribed to a service called Podmatch. And this is how I came in contact with Alan. And when his name popped up on the screen, I was like, I want to talk with him. I want to talk with him. So I was very excited when you said yes. I was showing my wife, I'm like, look, I get to do the thing. He said yes, we get to do the thing. So
but that's one of the coolest things about podcasting. And let me just say this right off the bat. Yeah, I've done movies, I've done TVs, I've done theater, I've done it all. Podcasting is by far the most rewarding creative medium I have worked in. It's not even close. And
I enjoy it thoroughly.
With podcasting, it's amazing the proximity to things you never thought you'd gain proximity to.
Absolutely.
We'll get to it eventually, but one of my biggest podcasts with my company, Costin Touchdown, we make 10 different podcasts right now. It's about to be an even dozen. But I grew up loving spy stories. And
oh, nice.
Our biggest podcast, John Kiriaku's Dead Drop, What Makes a Spy Tick, it has taken me inside the subject matter, a subject matter that fascinated me to a granular level I never expected. It's not reading it, or it is literally, yeah. I get to write with and in John Kiriaku's voice. And
nice.
That, holy shit, to have stumbled onto that. What did I do right? Oh my goodness. But yeah, it's been funny. I would say, aside from raising my kids, podcasting has been the most exciting adventure of my entire life.
That's awesome. Yeah, this is something that I stumbled into, for myself. It wasn't like I set out to become a podcaster. Matter of fact, when I first got started in this, there was a lot of conversation with my counselor, my therapist at the time, who wanted me to sit down and journal things, write things out, and wanted me to do a video blog. And I'm like, I'm never doing either of those things. I'm not that type of guy. I'm like, I'm not going to sit there and just talk into a microphone and a camera and talk about things. What am I doing now? I said, I'm not a writer. I'm not going to sit there and journal. I've written for a couple different websites.
It is cathartic. Well, storytelling is cathartic.
Yeah.
As we walk through my creative journey, storytelling became incredibly important. At the end of the day, it wasn't necessarily the case at the beginning of the day. I didn't think of it in those terms. I was all right. One of the questions that you asked in the preamble to this conversation, in the intro, is, all right, how did I end up on Tales from the Crypt? And I grew up on the East Coast. I live in Los Angeles now, but I grew up on the East Coast. And I grew up in Baltimore. I went to school in New York. I went to Vassar. I was at Dramarama. I have written professionally since I was 16. I've always taken writing for granted. When I went to
Okay.
Vassar, I was a drama major. I thought I would be an actor. I went to one audition after Vassar. I was awful. I was unprepared. I walked down. I said to myself, "What kind of a fucking idiot makes their living this way? I'm going to go be a writer instead. A bigger fucking idiot." But yeah, but I did. I had a couple of clients. I was doing training films, industrial films. I had a friend from school. You know, and my aspiration was, all right, if I wasn't going to act, I was going to write. I was going to write theater. In New York, I was living in New
Okay.
York. New York was the center of the universe. I had a friend from school, Carol Yumkus, who had gone out to Los Angeles and become a literary agent at William Morris. Carol knew I was back at the writing game. She
Okay.
said, "Hey, you should write a screenplay." And I said, okay. I was interested in the idea. I've always been a movie buff. I grew up loving the Marx Brothers. I wrote a screenplay. She read it. She said, "This is pretty good. You should come out for a week and meet people." So in June of 1985, I flew out for a week of meet and greet based on this one screenplay I'd written called Down to Earth. And to me, as I flew out, Los Angeles was the stupidest fucking place on the whole planet. The land of the avocado head. But it was June. June in New York is hot and humid already, and every place smells like piss. Well, LA is the desert. There's no humidity. It was 40 years ago. It was a lot less crowded than it is now. And the people were so nice to me, especially in where my agent was taking me. And the meetings I was having, people blew copious amounts of smoke up my ass. One night, Carol took me to a movie premiere, St. Elmo's Fire. William Morris represented the movie. And this was a backstage view of that. And man, was that intoxicating. At some point in the evening, someone said, I said I had morning off the next day, and there were no pitches scheduled. They said, "You should take a drive through Topanga Canyon. It's really beautiful." So I took a drive the next morning through Topanga Canyon, which is within the LA city limits. It's quite beautiful. And as I drove from the freeway, the 101, through the Santa Monica Mountains, as they plunge into the Pacific Ocean, the Pacific Coast Highway, by the time I got to the water, fuck New York, man. Fuck New York. LA I sold my soul just like that.
Right.
And I moved the very next month out to Los Angeles. Now, I will say this about LA. I up until this point, at that point in my life, my late 20s, I was very much, I never felt at home anywhere. Not that I didn't feel at home, but I just didn't feel connected to any place. I didn't feel connected to Baltimore. I wasn't born there, born elsewhere, but
sure.
And I wasn't from New York, and I didn't care about New York, but something about LA I just connected to. The sun shines here most of the time, but there's a darkness about this place that outshines the light. It's a corruption to this place that's exquisite. I love this place. There's a reason noir was invented here. You had a bunch of very talented writers trying to figure out this very thing I'm describing. This so sunshiny and yet so dark. Well, one of the first people I met that first week in Los Angeles was a producer named Gil Adler, who liked the script I had written, and we quickly became best friends and creative partners. We were creative partners for a decade. Gil was a very talented producer. He actually came out of theater in New York. He trained as an accountant, and he worked for a while when he was in New York as a student for a guy named Sid Finger, who did all. When the people who appeared in all the Bond movies realized that the Broccolis might have been ripping them off, Sid Finger is the guy who looked at all the books and said, "Yeah, actually, they owe you this and they owe you that." So Gil worked for Sid Finger doing the Bond books, and so he learned the show business kind of from that perspective. He understood, Gil did, that if you have $1 to spend on your movie or TV series, do not spend $1. You haven't got it. Now, if you can make your movie or TV show for 99 cents or better, 98 cents, and make it look like the dollar, This is very, very good. Better still, if you can do it for 97 or 96 cents, make it look like $1.01, now you're onto something. The creative process really is just problem solving. And Gill's solution to the problem solving wasn't throw more money at it, it was throw more creativity at it, which was exactly where I came from. So we really became friends and creative partners. HBO had hired Gill to produce a TV series for it called The Hitchhiker, which he did up in Vancouver, an anthology series. And he did a good job for them. A little while later, they had a show, a lot of big money, big egos. It was over schedule, over budget, a thing called Vietnam War Stories, was shooting in Savannah. They hired Gil to go in and try to take it over, try to save it. And he did. And he brought it in on time, on budget, and it won a bunch of awards. And not too long thereafter, HBO had another big budget TV project, big egos, out of control. It was called Tales from the Crypt. And after its second season, there was one more season that HBO had committed to, and they wanted a producer they could trust. And so they wanted Gil. And since I was Gil's creative partner, I was part of the package. And so that's how I ended up on Tales from the Crypt. Now, when Tales from the Crypt started, 1989 was the first season. Back at that point, HBO was still really in the movie business, the occasional big live event. But they had only just begun to dip their toe into original programming. They had a show called First and 10 and another one called Dream On. But those are basically just single camera shows with fuck and tits. If you took out fuck and tits, it basically was just a network ready single camera show. It was a TV show that HBO was showing.
Sure.
These four big Hollywood producers approached HBO with a passion project, a comic book from their youth that they all loved, all the EC comic books. They were pitching a show called Tales from the Crypt, horror anthology, but their vision was to take a feature film sized vision of this passion project and stick it in HBO's little TV box. And HBO jumped up and down and said, sure, guys, do whatever the fuck you want. And so these feature guys went right to work writing scripts. They never put the series through a development process. All right. How do you take all the franchise elements from the comic books, the two-dimensional comic books that you love, and stick them into a three-dimensional TV series? Those elements don't move from point A to point B by themselves. You have to, someone has to do this and oversee it and manage it and make sure, well, we got all this, and make sure that the production design and that all these elements feel like the comic book, because in essence, that's what the audience is going to be tuning in for. You know, if they tune in, it's like, well, that's nothing like the comic book. What the fuck is wrong with you? You'll die right there on your feet.
Right,
well, they never did. They never did that. But the first three episodes one was by Zemeckis, all through the house, all through the night. I mean, Dick Donner's Dig This Cat, He's Real Gone, and Walter Hill's The Man Who Was Death are three brilliant episodes. So just amazing TV. The back three of the first season were okay. HBO, like I said, had ordered a second season, and they ordered a second season of 18 episodes and then a third season of 13. But as they headed into the second season, the way that you finance a TV series, whatever the network that is showing it, every time they show it, they pay a license fee. Well, that license fee, even if you show it one time, two times, three times, it's not going to add up to the cost of production. Production is way more expensive than that individual license fee, even the first time or two. Normally the way it works, especially in the olden days, you would find a deficit partner, and the deficit partner was the one who was going to take the risk, paying the millions of dollars it's going to cost to make however many episodes were in order until you get to whatever profitability is. In the old days, TV, it was a syndication. It was 65. You get the 65 episodes, you can syndicate. HBO had a completely different model. Theirs was, well, first of all, they didn't own anything. They didn't care. They didn't care how you're going to get the profitability, and neither did the executive producers, who took the budget that HBO put up, the license fee, the accumulated license fee for the season, and they just started spending that money. Well, it wasn't enough to pay for the season, so HBO cash flowed $1 million worth of overage. The night before the wrap party, HBO handed the executive producers a financial that said, "You owe us $1 million. You want season 3? Give us our money or fuck off." Well, there was a lot of money in the budget for the executive producers. So they basically took the $1 million out of season 3's budget, paid HBO, and HBO said, "All right, do your 3rd season and good riddance to you." But knowing what the situation was, HBO wanted to hire their own producer who they felt would be responsible with their money. And so that's why they hired Gil. So Gil and I went to work. We took over HBO. There was only one, we took over Tales from the Crypt with one season on the table. That was it. And we were supposed to see the show out to the graveyard, more or less. But Gil and I had other ideas, and we reinvigorated the franchise. We really went back to, because I grew up a fan of the comic books. I loved them. And so it was a real pleasure to be, one of my job was to be the franchise guy, the one responsible for taking all the franchise elements and making sure they got into every single frame of our TV series. Every script had to go through me. I was the last typist on every script before it went to department heads, before it went to casting, before it went anywhere. So everything had to go through me. That was one job. And I think we by being true to the franchise and managing all the franchise elements, we gave the show its personality up to a point.
Yeah.
My other job was to write Crypt Keeper segments. Well, just as the executive producers had not developed the TV series, had not figured out a way to, had not financed it correctly, well, they never developed the character of the Crypt Keeper. The Crypt Keeper in the comic books is an old white guy with stringy hair.
Yep. Still haunts my dreams.
The executive producers wanted their own Crypt Keeper. One day out in the valley, one of my executive producers, Joel Silver, was at his storage locker, and the storage locker across the hallway was owned by a guy named Kevin Yeager, a special effects meister. Among Kevin's other creations is Chucky.
Okay.
So, Kevin's got bona fides. Well, when Joel saw what was inside Kevin's locker, he said, you gotta make a Crypt Keeper for me. And so Kevin Yeager made the Crypt Keeper puppet, which is actually the work of 6 different puppeteers. There are 3 puppeteers working the animatronics of the Crypt Keeper's face, his eyes, his mouth. One puppeteer is his right arm, one's his left arm, and the other puppeteer handles the lateral and back and forth movement of the body and the head.
Okay.
Kevin created the puppet. He found an incredible voice, the actor John Kassir. And that was as far as the development process went. Whoever wrote the scripts, all right, you got this character, the Crypt Keeper. They all had an idea of how he talked. But whoever wrote the script would write a few words for the Crypt Keeper, and that's kind of how it went. So over the course of 20 some odd episodes, the first 2 seasons, the Crypt Keeper more or less says the same things, sitting in the same set, doing the same thing, staring back at the audience. Well, as the guy responsible for writing for that character, I don't know how you write for a non-character. How do you write for a cipher, especially if you want it to be funny? Generic character gives you generic everything. My question was, all right, at the end of the day, we all punch the clock and go back to our homes. When the Crypt Keeper punches the clock and goes back to his crypt, all right, what does he have for dinner? What does he watch on TV? Does he have any hobbies, likes or dislikes? Does he have friends? And I didn't so much want to know his backstory. That was not relevant. I wanted to know who he was.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Having to write for him and being a writer and therefore somewhat lazy, I had to invest him with a character. And being a writer and therefore lazy, I reached for the closest character at hand, which was me. And so really, I stuck me inside the Crypt Keeper. Like I said, I grew up loving Groucho Marx. The Crypt Keeper became my little Groucho Marx, making all those stupid pun jokes. There was now. I gotta say, writing for the Crypt Keeper, it completely turned that more than anything. At the end of the day, turned the franchise around. The Crypt Keeper became the franchise. Yeah, the episodes are important, but
absolutely, I get what you're saying.
It's the Crypt Keeper who, I've done a number of live events recently, horror conventions, and it blows my mind how many people I meet who tell me that Tales from the Crypt was it broke their horror cherry. They're scary, as the Crypt Keeper would say. They either watched it despite the fact that their parents told them you are not watching that disgusting program, or they watched it with their parents because their parents were horror fans who thought, this is okay. This is okay. Well, the Crypt Keeper, despite the fact that in the episodes we did horrible things to people, horrible things.
Yes.
But the Crypt Keeper seemed to always be reminding you that we're just having a laugh here, everybody. Don't take it so seriously.
So and that was me though, by the way.
The first group?
The first group, watching it because my mom said I couldn't when we got HBO. Because I graduated in high school in 1995. So I was very much of that age and paying attention to Tales from the Crypt.
Right in the
I've never been I've never been a huge horror fan. There's not, it's never been the biggest draw for me.
Neither am I.
But what I liked about Tales from the Crypt was, in fact, the Crypt Keeper and John Cassier's delivery, and the fact that he could make me laugh when I was uncomfortable about something I had just saw.
That was our secret sauce.
Yeah,
that
100%.
That was what turned the franchise around. Ultimately, we ran for 5 more seasons. We did 7 seasons and 75 odd episodes. It was a great gig, and hey, Universal Pictures appreciated the fact that, hey, this franchise has legs outside the little TV box, and they cut a deal with us to make 3 feature films. Because we're an anthology, they could be not anthological themselves, but didn't have to be one story told over X number of movies. And
right
now, Gil didn't come out of horror. I didn't come out of horror, and it was not our thing. We were really desperately afraid of being pigeonholed by Hollywood, because that's what Hollywood does as horror guys, when that's not what we were. So we had wanted to do something horror light, more psychological thriller, but the executive producers wanted to do straight horror, a monster movie for the first one. We were going to write it. Gil was going to direct it. Instead, we went looking for another script to do first. We almost did Quentin Tarantino's From Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh, yeah.
That was in the conversation for a little while, but we couldn't cut a deal with Quentin. And then another script came up by Cy Vorse and Ethan Reif called Demon Knight. Terrific script, terrific writers. And so we decided to do that one instead. We hired Ernest Dickerson as the director. Ernest did a magnificent job, a wonderful cast in Demon Knight. Billy Zane is an amazingly good villain. Bill Sadler and Jada Pinkett are the heroes. Great cast: Dick Miller, CC Pounder, Charlie Fleischer. Just a wonderful cast. Wonderful cast.
Yeah.
Movie turned out great. Now, we were on our way to making that psychological thriller that I mentioned. Universal Pictures was on board. It was called Dead Easy. It was this taut psychological thriller about a recovered memory. It took place in the swamps outside New Orleans. A great villain, a great franchise villain, this Harlequin character. Amazing franchise villain. Holy shit. Universal Pictures was aboard because we spent money on the script. We We were in New Orleans scouting locations. We spent some part of at least 6 months working to get that movie started. We were in New Orleans getting ready to start the formal prep, and 3 weeks before the start of formal prep, they pulled the plug. Universal Pictures said stop, don't spend another dollar, come home, you're not making that movie. And so we all got on the plane and we flew back to Los Angeles, and they stuck another script under our nose and they said, you're going to make this movie instead. It's called Bordello of Blood. Guys, your release date hasn't changed. You still start, get to work. You still start shooting in 5 weeks. You start, go guys. And so we all went from making a movie we all wanted to making this. All right, where did Bordello of Blood come from? At about this time, a brand new studio had come into being called DreamWorks. DreamWorks was Steven Spielberg leaving his deal at Universal, not the lot. He's still based at Universal, but he left his deal at Universal to create DreamWorks. And now that he's a studio of his own, he had to begin to set up talent deals with your studio. That's what studios have to do. Universal was desperately afraid of losing another big piece of talent. One of my executive producers, Bob Zemeckis. Universal went to Bob. They said, well, because Steven Spielberg was Bob's mentor. They had a very close relationship. Universal went to Bob and they said, Bob, we love you, Universal. What can we do to make you stay? And he stayed, so the deal must have been good. I only know one deal point. Universal Pictures agreed to buy the first student script that Bob Zemeckis and his occasional writing partner, Bob Gale, ever wrote. These were the future Back to the Future writers and a bunch of movies. But this was before they were that. When they were film school students, the first student script they ever wrote when they were at USC, it's called Bordello of Blood, for $500,000. It was a deal point. A way to put $500,000 in Bob Z's, $250,000 in Bob Z's, $250,000 in Bob Gale's pocket. Bob's a very loyal guy. And that was supposed to be the end of it. But Universal Pictures sat there thinking, are we just going to eat this $500,000? Wait a minute. Bob's about to executive produce this other horror movie, this Dead Easy thing. We spent, $50,000 on that script? Fuck that. We'll take it out of their budget. Guys, you're going to make Bordello of Blood instead. Hey, it's got Bob Zemeckis and Bob Gale's names on it. That's bigger than Alan Katz and Gil Adler, isn't it? And so for that very cynical reason, we all went from making a passion project that the whole creative team had been invested in for 18 months to making a fucking student script because of a deal point.
Gotta love that.
When you do anything, let alone something creative, for reasons that cynical, do not be surprised when every single day is stupider than the day before it. And that is exactly what happened. Once Universal lost its fucking mind, everyone lost their fucking minds. Everything became untethered because really nothing fucking mattered anymore.
Right.
Well, all right. We set about the job in hand. I guess we could have walked away, but no, you really can't, because then you'll never work in this town again. Well, yeah, that becomes the problem. So, all right, we all set about making a movie that nobody making it wanted to make. The first problem was that it's a student script. The hero in Bordello of Blood is a small town detective. Now, ask yourself, how much business can a detective really do in a small town? Not enough to be a small town detective. There's no such thing. No such person exists.
No, that's true.
It's the kind of character only film school students could create. And as you go to, all right, we're going to write this character. Where does this person come from? Jesus Christ. When the actor comes to me and says, this guy, tell me about his past. He doesn't have a past, man. Just figure it out. No, it can't work that way. So the hero is unfixable. especially with,
Yes.
especially within the time constraints we had. You got 3 weeks, guys. So our first problem was,
Wasn't that Dennis Miller?
yes,
Yeah,
that's our next
another problem.
problem. That's our next problem. Now
Good
Gil
comedian,
and
bad
I,
actor.
yeah, well, yeah, we'll get to that. Gil and I had our choices for the 3 leads in that movie.
Okay.
We wanted Danny Baldwin for the detective. Danny would have given us, I think, a good gritty performance. I think he could have, just being who he is, could have filled in some of the blanks in that character's story. But Joel Silver, our executive producer, took over the casting of the 3 leads, and he insisted on casting Dennis Miller. To this day, I cannot tell you why. I honestly don't know. Dennis did not want to be in the movie. And when Joel approached him, Dennis said, well, I'd do it for $1 million, figuring no one in their fucking mind, in their right mind, would pay Dennis Miller. We did the research. As soon as we were told we were paying Dennis Miller $1 million, what was his previous quote? Scale. He was a scale actor that we're suddenly paying $1 million to be in the movie. We had $500,000 in the budget. We didn't have $1 million for that character. We went to Universal. We said, look, can we get some help here, a little breakage to help us pay for our lead actor? They said, we don't know why you're hiring him. No.
Oh boy.
Our audience was a horror audience that wanted to see good, bloody special effects makeup. They did not care about a comedian like Dennis Miller, who had a niche show on HBO. The fact that we were both HBO shows, I don't think had anything to do with it, because HBO really wasn't doing crossovers like that. I don't think anyone gave a toss.
Yeah.
And it wasn't HBO's decision anyway. HBO had nothing to do with it. This was entirely Joel Silver suddenly getting a hard on for Dennis Miller that I can't explain. So Joel said yes to the $1 million. And Dennis committed to the movie. We couldn't get any money from Universal, so we took the money from the budget where all the money was, makeup, special effects. We literally took $500,000 off the screen to pay for the stuff the audience wanted to see, to pay for an actor they didn't give a fuck about.
Put it in actor, yeah.
What? I can't explain that. All right. For the female lead, we wanted an actress named Bridget Wilson. Joel wanted Erica. He wanted Erica Eleniak.
Mm-hmm.
The reason he wanted Erica Eleniak was because he wanted to fuck her. But Erica was in a committed relationship at the time, so that wasn't going to happen. And Erica, apparently, as soon as she said yes to this movie, playing the female lead in Bordello of Blood, decided she didn't want to be that kind of actress in these kind of movies anymore. Now, Gil, my partner, who was directing the movie in addition to the other chores on the movie, whether he is directing a movie or whether he's producing the movie, he likes to start work on a Thursday. That way you get 2 days of work in. If you have any problems with the script or an actor or just something that needs to be rethought, you have the weekend to get that done. So when you hit the ground on Monday running, at least you've solved most of your problems, or at least you've identified them. So in keeping with that, we had started work on Bordello of Blood on Thursday. We shot some bar scenes with our Vancouver actors. On Monday, we were shooting at location, and Dennis Miller, he flew in on Monday, and Erica Eleniak was supposed to fly in on Monday to arrive on Monday, wardrobe Tuesday. Actually, it was to fly on Sunday. That's right. Well, yeah, supposed to fly on Sunday, arrive on Monday, work Tuesday. On Saturday, before she's supposed to work, we're already shooting now. Her manager calls me and says she's not getting on an airplane tomorrow, Sunday, unless you rewrite the script. So she doesn't want to be that kind of actress in this kind of movie. So the character originally as written was a former porn star. She didn't want to be a former
Okay.
porn star. She could not be a former porn star. Well, that's a
Okay.
problem because that's what connected her to the Dennis Miller's character. He was a fan. So if you take that away, or what did she do that he was a fan of? That would be, I don't know, in the same territory. What was he, a folk musician? No. You know this. No. And there was a whole lot of other stuff that was. If you pull that thread, a whole lot. We're shooting already. No. So finally, the manager agrees to a compromise. She was a former plus-size porn star. Her original name is written was Chesty O'Toole. The plus-size porn star was Chubby O'Toole. She's lost a ton of weight. She's unrecognizable. Okay, she can live with that. I honestly don't see what the real difference was, but okay, that got her on an airplane on Sunday to be in wardrobe, Monday to work on Tuesday. All right, whatever. All right. That was our those two actors, and Erica was miserable from the moment she arrived. It was also galling. We had $250,000 in the budget for that part, and Joel, because he wanted to fuck her, agreed to pay $500,000 for that actor. So that's another $250,000 for an actor that we really didn't. Why am I paying an extra? Why am I paying a $250,000 bonus? It came right off the screen. Came right off the screen. All right. We wanted for our villain, for the Lilith character, the villain of the piece, the most important character in the whole fucking movie.
Right.
We wanted Robin Givens. And I think Robin would have been wonderful. We were told, someone said, she's not an easy person to work with. We worked with Joel Silver. What are you talking about? Not worried about that. But Joel had other ideas. He never entertained the Robin Givens question because he was shooting at the same time that he was about to start making this movie in Vancouver. He was shooting just across the border in Seattle, another movie he was executive producing called Assassins. Dick Donner was directing, my other executive producer. And that movie starred Antonio Banderas and Sylvester Stallone, who at the time was engaged. And at the time, Sylvester Stallone was engaged to a supermodel named Angie Everhart.
Yep.
And one day on the set of Assassins, Sly walked up to Joel and said, "Hey, Joel, you're going to be making a movie in Vancouver. Why don't you hire my girlfriend Angie? That way we can meet each other across the border." And Joel, instead of being a responsible executive producer and saying, "That's a great idea, Sly, but let me check with the guys," he said, "That's a great idea, Sly." Period. And he committed us.
No more.
Our executive producer committed us to hiring the girlfriend of an actor on one set just to make him happy, regardless of the impact it had on the other movie. Now, Angie is a lovely person, really a very, very a wonderful human being. We're not talking about that, but she was a supermodel. She had no training as an actor, and I've hired a lot of actors in my time, and I can tell you this definitively. I never, ever hired anyone to act for the camera. When I hired them, the last thing on earth I ever wanted any of them to do was act when the camera was on.
Okay.
I need them to be. If they act, the camera, it's a bullshit detector. It will see them acting. We see people acting all the time. They go, "Boy, that's phony." They have to be.
Sure, yeah.
The screen acting for the screen is about being as nakedly, emotionally honest as you can at those key moments. If you pretend in any way, shape, or form, that's what acting is. No, the microphone, it works exactly the same way, and that's really podcasting's secret sauce.
Yeah,
the truth, the honesty in front of the mic.
But you have to be authentic.
Oh my goodness. Well, all right. Billy Zane is a great villain in Demon Knight because he's not acting. There's a piece of Billy that's really dark. And what Billy is able to do at those moments in Titanic and whenever he plays a dark character, you're seeing a piece of Billy. you're seeing a piece of Billy's actual darkness. Angie Everhart has not a bit of darkness in her, not that I'm aware of, not anything that she could use effectively in a movie. No, she has.
Sure.
She does not have that darkness in her, and so when called upon, all she could do was act it, and she's not an experienced actor. So even trying to act it, she's got no weapons in her toolkit to play with. The onus is not on Angie at all. It is entirely on the people who hired her for the reasons that they hired her. We did not hire Angie because we suddenly thought, wow, there's something in her that we will capture it and it will explode inside this movie. No, we hired her for a very cynical reason, to keep Sly Stallone happy. Now, we begged Joel not to do this. We screen tested Angie. We figured, hey, show the screen test to Sly. Surely he would not do this to the woman he supposedly loves. There was
so much for that, huh?
Well, he had an ulterior motive, really. The visitor across the border really was just the beginning of the thought. He had something else going on that he wanted to go with. He actually, Stallone saw Bordello of Blood as the thing he could use when he broke up with Angie, to say, hey, but I got you a feature film, didn't I? He had stuff going on. Now, how do we know this? All right. For the first couple of weekends that we were working with Angie, and she would go across the border to visit Sly, well, our production office had to coordinate every last bit of that with the Assassins production office in Seattle. We had a person, so our two production offices became very close. Our production office was all female, and most of their production office was female too. So I have a lot of people talking about, moving people back and forth. The third weekend, we got a call from our production office, got a call from their production office, and they said, is there any way you can hold Angie this weekend? Hold Angie to do what? Her homework? What? No, why? What? No, no, she's a grown person. No.
To do her homework.
And so we said no. All right. So that was the first intimation that there's something going on there that ain't entirely kosher. All right. There's a very famous story about
Kool-Aid.
Yeah. There's a very famous story about Sly Stallone. He has never denied the story. The only question has ever been, on which film set did this take place? I would assert it takes place on the Assassins film set, because I never heard the story before. And the first place that I heard it from was my production staff, who heard it from the production staff in Seattle. So that's how I heard this story the first time. He finishes a scene, does Sly Stallone, and he goes back to his trailer, unaware of the fact that his wireless lavalier mic is still on. It's still alive and it's still broadcasting back to the sound cart. A young woman is waiting for him. Now, Stallone has never denied that this story happened. Like I said, the only question has been on which film set. I heard this story from my production staff, who heard it from their production staff, because it happened on their film set, and some of them probably had the T-shirts to back it up. Anyway,
that's crazy.
So we hired Angie, and 2/3 of the way through the movie, he did indeed break up with her, and oh, what a mess that was. We ended up making the movie in Vancouver, not because there was anything in Vancouver that we needed to make our movie. We should have made the movie in Los Angeles, but there was a problem. Our executive producer, Joel Silver, was always in an on-again, off-again war with the IA, the union that represented our crew. And sometimes Joel was winning the war, and sometimes the IA was winning the war. Not too long before we started Bordello of Blood, we had made a backdoor pilot for Fox called Weird World. And on day 3, the union shut us down. And they forced us, our non-union crew, who were all union members, to go union. Well, that fuck you to Joel. He went, fuck me? No, fuck you. So rather than make Bordello of Blood in Los Angeles with our crew, which would have paid the money into the union, we took the movie out of Los Angeles to the closest film hub, which was Vancouver, just to say fuck you to the IA. That was the only reason we went to Vancouver. That was it. So we went off to make our horror movie in Vancouver in July. Now, horror movies is a lot of night. They take place a lot at night.
Yeah.
One of the things you don't get in Vancouver, because it's that far north, in July is night. The sun the sun goes down very late. The sky does not become shootable dark until about midnight. And then you get the first traces of sun that makes the sky unshootable 4 o'clock. So a film day is 13 hours. So our 13-hour film days were suddenly being crammed into 4 hours just because we were shooting the movie in a place we had no business shooting it. We bumped into problems like that constantly, and that left us with, the climax of the movie took place in a glass cathedral, a glass church. At night. We had scheduled one night to shoot it. Well, it would have been good luck to us to cram all that into 13 hours. Cramming it into 4 was an absolute impossibility. So, of course, we went back to Los Angeles with an incomplete movie in our hands. We did reshoots in Los Angeles on some stuff, but we did not make our date. Universal lost interest, didn't really care. We were supposed to open the following Halloween. We could have, but they didn't care. They held us till the following August. They released us in the doldrums. By then, Gil Adler and I were no longer on speaking terms. We broke up. Our relationship broke up. Bordello of Blood really destroyed everything. I went on. I did a couple seasons on The Outer Limits, which shot in Vancouver. But for the most part, Gil ended up having a terrific career as a producer, especially produced a lot of Warner Brothers big tentpole movies: Superman Returns, Valkyrie, Constantine, because these were hundreds of millions of dollars in the budget, and Gil is a great responsible producer. But Gil's fortunes rose. Mine, I did a couple of seasons on The Outer Limits, but I found myself in the midst of what turned out to be a 2 decades long descent into a darkening depression and a writer's block I did not even know I was in.
Wow. Okay.
It turned out during that time I raised my 2 kids. I was very much a stay-at-home dad. Trying to get back into showbiz, but Showbiz Mountain is really weird. It's very hard to get on Showbiz Mountain. But when, for whatever reason, you get cast off Showbiz Mountain, it's crushing because everyone is still on Showbiz Mountain, and they're all there, and you're here. It's terrible. But it turned out I've been keeping a secret from myself for 45 years, and this keeping the secret had undermined my confidence in me, my connection to me, my ability to overcome situations like Bordello of Blood or what was happening to me. And 3 days before Christmas 2016, I came within literal inches of killing myself. I knew I was in a I knew I was in a really horrible way. My dad was a surgeon, so I grew up in the medical culture, and I knew that my GP had no background whatsoever in the kind of medications, the mood stabilizers that I needed. The most likelihood was that the last pharmaceutical rep who walked through their office said, "Hey, you got any depressed patients? We make this. Try that out." And so, this kind of medication, under the best of circumstances, you're a lab experiment. I didn't want to be a lab experiment where none of the boxes were checked off. I wanted to be a lab experiment where at least I had checked off some of the boxes. So I had done my own research, realizing at that point that I was at that place where I could do something stupid, really fatally stupid. I drove right to my GP. I told him what I had done. I said, look, I've done the research. Here's the mood stabilizer I'd like you to prescribe for me. He whipped out his smartphone. Said, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And he wrote the prescription. I picked it up, went home, told my family what I was going to do because, again, even having done the research, it's 6 to 8 weeks most likely before you know whether it's going to work for you or work against you. It's a lab experiment. And so I told him what I was going to do. I took the first dose, and that's when I got supremely lucky. I leveled within 36 hours with that minimal dose. I literally I felt the medication do what it was supposed to do. I had this incredible self-focused loathing, this rage, and anything could set me off. I'm a very political person, and the politics especially would just get me raging, and something hit the pit of my stomach, and like it always did, like a plume of lava, it raced toward my throat, and just as it was about to explode out of me, it dissipated like a soap bubble. I knew I had felt this rage, but it was gone like a circuit breaker. I cut it off. That's what the medication does. It's a circuit breaker. I felt it. I felt that happen. And I thought, well, that was weird. I didn't necessarily connect it to the medication at that point, but then it happened again a couple hours later, and I realized that's what the medication does. And once I suddenly realized that it was working, it took the darkness and it put it not in a box, but a cage. And yeah, the darkness and I can still see each other, but the darkness can no longer get at me. And so being able to step away from the self-loathing judgment and the rage, I could confront the fact that when I was 14 years old, I was sexually molested twice by the religious director at the synagogue where my family belonged outside of Baltimore. Now, the first time is bad because you're being treated like a sex toy by an adult. But it's the second time that I think really fucked me up, because the second time happened because I didn't say anything about the first time. And walking into the second time, I realized what was about to happen to me again, and I put the entire blame on me. This is happening because of you. And that becomes the template. Look, it's not correct. It's wrong. It is not the 14-year-old victim's fault that an adult is using them in this way. But that became the template. And so blaming myself, and that then also became how you solve problems. Well, all right, just taking the blame does not solve the problem. And if you take the blame for other people's problems, that doesn't solve anything either. It's a bad way to do things. But that became the template. And meanwhile, self-loathing rage. Well, it is so true what they say about the truth setting you free. Oh my goodness. Forgiving 14-year-old me for something he did not deserve blame for, cathartic. But hey, if you can't tell your own story to yourself, can you really tell anyone else's story? Of course you can't. Now that I could suddenly tell my story to me with absolute balls to the wall honesty, well, I could tell anybody's story. And that kind of became my focus. I went from being, pat myself on the back, a really talented writer, to being a storyteller. And that became my absolute focus was, I need to do what telling the truth did for me. Let me set you free by telling your story. That became my focus. All right. During the pandemic, a Tales from the Crypt fan group, 3 guys from various parts of the country, Tales from the Crypt fans and dads, created a podcast called Dads from the Crypt. They reviewed all the episodes of Tales from the Crypt and gave parenting advice. One of the dads, Jason, reached out to me, said, we're going to be reviewing one of the episodes you wrote. You want to sit in with us? That sounded like fun. I said, yeah, great. And it was fun. We had a great time. A few weeks later, Jason reached out to me again. He said, hey, we're going to be reviewing Bordello of Blood. You want to sit in with us? And I said, Jason, the story of the making of that fucking fiasco is not a half-hour conversation with you. It's a ding, and the light bulb went off in my head. It's a podcast unto itself. And that was the impetus for season 1 of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast. Season 1 was subtitled The Making of Bordello of Blood. And
Okay.
telling the story of the making of Bordello of Blood was cathartic. First of all, I had to get back in touch with Gil because I didn't want to tell the story from the actor's perspective. I really wanted to tell the story of how he went from making a sublime creative experience, the making of Tales from the Crypt, over 75 episodes and 5 seasons. I got a total of 3 notes from HBO. We had such creative freedom. It was wonderful. It was great.
Nice.
Bordello of Blood was the antithesis to it. And so I wanted to tell the story about that antithesis of going from the sublime to the ridiculous, which is really what the experience was. So it really was about the production, the people, the Crypt people who made it, and a few of the Canadian production people I talked to, because I needed to have their opinions of us because we behaved so badly. We were terrible. Awful, and we absolutely deserved for them to speak truthfully about how awful we were. That needed to be spoken not by us but by them. They needed to
Right.
to speak their truth to us. So, but when I reached out to Gil and I told him, and I hadn't talked to Gil in 25 years, and there was a lot of acrimony on the breakup. Man. I said, look, here's what I want to do. I want to tell the story of Bordello of Blood, and I want to tell the story about what happened afterwards. Some very unpleasant things. And we had never talked about it. And I said, I don't want to talk about it in advance. I want to have those conversations live on mic, and I want to be able to put them in the podcast. And he was rather trepidatious, as he should have been, but he said, okay. And that's what we did. The goal was to make to tell the story as honestly as we could.
Love it.
That was why Entertainment Weekly called that first season of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast the best film podcast of 2022. Clark Collis, who wrote that piece about us and said those lovely words about us, after he listened to the podcast, it was the honesty that struck him. He wanted to make sure we weren't full of shit. So when he interviewed Gil and I, he heard how genuine we were, and that's why he wrote that. He wrote what he wrote.
Cool.
I really loved working in this medium. All right. I did a couple of subsequent seasons. I did 4 seasons. I'm actually now have restarted How Not to Make a Movie podcast, but I did 4 seasons. The next 3 seasons were basically just a conversation about the craft of movie and TV making and what happens when the craft turns to crap. I had a friend while I was doing one of the other seasons, a friend from school reached out to me with a story he wanted to turn into a TV series, I guess, or a movie. And when he told me the story, I said, no, you absolutely do not want to turn this into a TV series. First of all, they'll never let you. They'll change all the most important details because it's too hard a story.
Okay.
I'll come to the story in a moment. I wanted him to do it as a podcast. Now, here's the thing. To take a story from my head or his head or anyone's head, turn it into a series, for instance, it takes 10 years. Really, that's on average. It takes about 10 years. You got to write the script. And again, keep in mind, as you're writing this, you're not writing for the audience. You're writing for a handful of executives who will make the decision whether to put this into further development or not. Once you've got the script done for your TV series, well, you just wrote season 1, episode 1. You need to tell them, because you're asking them to put up an awful lot of money, what happens episode 2, season 1. Episode 3, 4, 5, what happens over the whole arc of season 1 and season 2 and season 3 and season 4? Who are all these characters? What's the tone here? What's the tone there? What does this look like? What does this feel like? You have to put all that into a document called a Bible. And that does not write itself. This is very much part of this 10+ year process, all of which you were writing for a handful of executives.
Right.
All right, now you've got all that stuff written. In order to induce these apes to read, You have to create a pitch deck, which is a PowerPoint presentation, about 7 panels, a handful of words, mostly pictures, just to get them feel of, oh, what's this about? Am I going to waste my time reading this? What's it about? Just to get these motherfuckers to read what you've spent a fucking decade working on. Okay.
Right.
Then if they say yes, you're lucky enough. All right, you're just in the development process. That's just the very tippy top of the meat grinder. Who the fuck knows what sausage, what's going to be in the sausage that comes out the other end of this thing? You, in order to get paid, you must sign what's called a certificate of authorship, a C of A. It has to do with the nature of film and TV distribution around the world. You can't have some writer asshole saying, I don't like the politics in that country. You can't distribute there. No, you can't have that. So in essence, a buyout occurs. You sign the C of A. Yeah, you'll get paid some, but you lose all rights in perpetuity throughout the known universe. Now, you will get paid, but let me tell you, the money that will come in, the lion's share of the money you just spent a decade, the thing you just spent a decade working on, it's not going to you, the writer, not even remotely. All right. Take the same idea, turn it into a podcast. I can write it, produce it, distribute it. That's the key. I cannot distribute a TV series or a feature film like the big boys, but I can distribute a podcast same as everybody else. I can monetize it, and I can collect on the monetization. I can tell the story exactly the way I want it without any fucking executives' interference. And I can distribute it. Like I said, I can make my money on it. I can have advertisers and an audience. And at the end of the day, I still own it 100%.
Yeah.
And the fact that it would make a great movie or TV series go, and it would still make a great TV series. Now, in the old days, I would have had to go cap in hand to try to convey to the people in the executive suites, what's the IP? What's the franchise? What's the IP?
Right.
That's what I'm trying to sell. And hopefully they'll buy. But now, well, everyone knows what the IP is. It's there in the podcast. The audience knows what it is. The advertisers know what it is. And these people know what it is too. So rather than, instead of me going cap in hand to buy, to sell it, they're going to come to me to buy. They're going to say, hey, that podcast would make a great TV series. I'm going to go, oh my goodness, you're right, it would. And they're going to hand me
by golly, by Jove, it sure would.
Yeah. And I'm going to look at their check. I'm going to say, that's really pretty, but you're going to have to add some zeros and move the decimal point over because fuck you. I don't need your money. I already told the story exactly the way I wanted to. I monetized it. I got paid for telling my story. That was the cake in this experience. I've enjoyed the cake. You are but the icing, my friend. No, you are the sprinkles atop the icing. I want you just for your money. And unless the money is what I want, I can say no to you. Fuck off. And that is where all the power in negotiation always is. In the word no, the ability to say fuck off.
Right.
I honestly believe that podcasting gives creators the way to flip the power dynamic away from the money back to the creatives where it belongs.
Oh, 100%.
Because we can produce the whole thing exactly the way we want it. And that's really all they need. Then we don't have to go sell a goddamn thing. We really, now look, it is execution dependent. No argument. You still got to tell a great story, tell it the right way. Yeah,
absolutely.
There's margin for error in production. There is. You know, one of the great things about the pandemic, was that it did level the playing field where technology is concerned. Where TV, especially in radio and broadcasting, were concerned, there was broadcasting and there was everyone else. But during the pandemic, everyone was broadcasting in their shorts and their underwear from their bedrooms via Zoom.
100%.
Going, turn your mute off. It's still happening. You're muted. Turn your mute off. That still happens on every news channel.
Yeah.
It leveled the playing field. It literally, that's why podcasting suddenly could become a thing, because it doesn't have to be sterling quality 4K. Tell me a great story that I connect with emotionally and I'll show up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So my friend, I said, no, you don't want to do this story as anything other than a podcast. Here's my friend's story. He worked his way through medical school in the mid-90s as an anonymous sperm donor.
Okay.
Jump forward 27 years. He was a successful radiologist. He joined 23andMe, curious about his health genes. It did not occur to him the ramifications of adding his DNA to a growing DNA database. That's what 23andMe Ancestry's DNA shops are.
Correct. Yes.
He lost his donor anonymity, and suddenly 7 total strangers found Daddy. Except six of them had no idea their actual biological father was this guy, a sperm donor. These were 6 adults, 25, 26-year-old people discovering they did not know who they thought they were. The 7th was one of the daughters, and she brought a thing called genetic sexual attraction to the table. I had never heard a story so fucked up in my entire life. So I could not possibly write a story this fucked up, so compellingly fucked up. And so to me, a podcast was the only way to tell that story. And so I convinced my friend, Hal is what we call him, to do this as a podcast. And that was my first story podcast. While I was doing my research on the donor conceived community, because I had no idea there was a donor conceived community, a community of people who discover, oh, I'm a sperm donor. One of mine is my father. There is a whole community of people who discover, and when they discover late in life, that I have all these siblings, half siblings, or as some of them call them dibblings. One of the donor conceived people who graciously agreed to talk to me and give me background was a woman named Donna Hall. And Donna learned at 40 that she was donor conceived. Absolutely blew her mind. But when Donna told me the rest of her story, I said, Jesus Christ, Donna, you're a podcast unto yourself. She said, yeah, I've been trying. Donna had an amazing story, but even an amazing story has got to be told the right way so that an audience can appreciate how amazing it is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. The first podcast became The Donor, a DNA horror story. And that I was in 7 episodes, the story of Hal and what happened to him as a sperm donor. The second story podcast became Donna Hall's story, The Hall Closet. Donna grew up in the mid-90s in a lower tier crime family outside of Philadelphia. The Halls weren't the Corleones from the Godfather movies, but they made national headlines just the same. Donna's mom, Phyllis, maybe the worst mom ever, was headlined in headlines as the Home Alone mom of Bucks County. She spent 6 months in prison for child endangerment, a mom. Donna's stepdad, John Hall, a true criminal mastermind, was the Philadelphia Police Department's favorite snitch. He put more than 25 people behind bars based on bullshit confessions that he concocted to mitigate his own considerable legal situation.
Okay.
Among the people he put away was his own stepson, Herb, and he put away who spent 18 months in prison for a murder on a murder rap. He did not commit the murder. John Hall also put a guy named Walter Ogrod on death row for 24 years in Pennsylvania for a murder that Walter did not commit. Anyway, Donna tells the story of what it was like growing up in this lower tier crime family where every single day, there was abuse and all kinds of other things. Every single day, at least one of the adults was committing one crime or another. And Donna's an amazing storyteller. She's vivacious. She's funny. But the granularity of the story was so appealing to me. And that became my second story podcast, Donna's The Hall Closet, which is now in its 3rd season. I suddenly found while I was making The Hall Closet with Donna that I had become the thing I always wanted to be when I grew up, which is a podcaster. And now I've got, like I said, 10 podcasts going on a dozen. The biggest podcast we have right now is called John Kiriaku's Dead Drop, What Makes a Spy Tick, which has gotten as high as number 4 on Apple's history charts.
Awesome.
And we're doing about 600,000 downloads a month with that. We're doing good with that.
Clicking along.
Yeah, that's John tells the story. John Kiriaku is a former CIA officer. counterterrorism. He, during the War on Terror, John led the mission to Islamabad, Pakistan, where we captured the guy we thought was the number 3 in Al-Qaeda. His nom de guerre was Abu Zubaydah. John led the mission, and for the first 60 hours that we held Abu Zubaydah, John was his handler and his interrogator. Then we released, Abu Zubaydah was sent to various black sites, including an infamous one in Thailand, where we learned he was not the number 3 at Al-Qaeda, and he gave us lots of great actionable intelligence. Nonetheless, we waterboarded him 83 times, in addition to other forms of torture. When John learned the truth of what we had done to Abu Zubaydah and 1 or 2 other people, he blew the whistle on the CIA's torture program to Brian Ross at ABC News, and then spent 23 months in federal prison for having done it.
Oh, wow.
In season 1, in 25 episodes of season 1 of Dead Drop, we told the story on a very granular level, why John became a spy, to every assignment he was on, because really it all built to that moment where he decides he knew the risk was complete, that they could come after him if he told the truth, and they did. The CIA came after him, and they're still after him in a number of ways. But in the second season, John told the story of, doing time like a spy, how all the things he had learned as a spy served him incredibly well as a federal prisoner in the Red Federal Prison. We're just about to start season 3, where it's back to spying, where John gets his life back and reconstructs it doing the only thing he knows how to do, being a spy.
Very cool.
So, like I said, we've got lots and lots of podcasts. Oh my goodness, I love everything about this medium. I do, and I love the podcasting community as well.
Yeah, it's a fun community. I came in this medium completely blindsided. This was never my intent to sit down behind a mic and talk to anybody. It was never my intent to interview anyone, much less talk about my own stuff at one point. But yeah, it's amazing to me how quickly this got under my skin, and it's something that I look forward to. Now I look forward to sitting down and talking to people and hearing what makes them tick. And hearing your story tonight was very fun for me, very enjoyable. But
good, thank you. I'm glad.
Yeah,
I'm always glad to
absolutely.
hear that. Always glad to hear that.
Yeah, and so for me, this is something I look forward to now, and being able to sit down and talk to people. One of the things we were talking about pre-shows, the ability that podcasting allows us to do for opening doors that we didn't think were possible, the things that we didn't, the people that I've been able to meet. Oh, 100%. The people that I've been able to meet through this and interact with and talk with and do things with, people that I've grown up watching, enjoying, loving to see their stuff, and then being able to talk with them one-on-one. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, by the way. And so for me, a lot of the guys that I've talked with from Star Wars, I have to get my fanboying out right away. I'm like, okay, you're not professional, but be professional. I'm not professional, but be professional. Okay, here we go. I can do this. Yeah.
Everyone is blown away by somebody. One of the great thrills about doing Tales from the Crypt, I grew up a movie lover. I grew up loving movies, but I got to work with an awful lot of the people whose movies I loved. I got Kirk Douglas. I got to work with Donald O'Connor.
That's awesome.
Oh my goodness. It was so, meeting people is nice, but getting to be creative with them was incredible fun. Just being able to sit on a set with a guy like Donald O'Connor, he's telling you stories, fucking pinch me. One of the coolest experiences I ever had, I wrote 2 of Bob Zemeckis' episodes, which was great. Bob is a wonderful collaborator. Good God. Just great fun. The second episode that I wrote for him, he had told me over lunch one day, he invited me up to his place outside of Santa Barbara, and I knew he was going to direct the last episode of the season, and the subject on the table was, all right, what do you want the episode to be about, Bob? And he said, look, all I know is I want to do a completely subjective camera show from the point of view of a dead guy. Okay. Oh, and I want the dead guy. I want the dead guy to be played by Humphrey Bogart. So every time we drag the body past a reflective surface, we see him. So we have to integrate like 18 film clips from Bogart movies. You know, we'll have to figure out a way in and figure out a way out. You know, something logical.
Okay.
Okay, Bob. But now Bob has plenty of ideas in his head. He's not going, yeah, you'll figure it out, asshole. He's not. He's got lots of ideas. He's just putting it on the table. In every Bob Zemeckis movie, there's at least one or two moments, a scene or two that, if you know anything about the filmmaking process, that's impossible. That's impossible. How you got that shot, that's impossible. But Bob challenged his crew to say, look, here's what I want to do, guys. And, blah, blah, blah. And he said, here's the challenge. All right, guys, how are we going to do this? And then literally it was a completely open environment. How are we going to collectively solve this creative problem? Wonderful.
Love it.
Wonderful working with Zemeckis. God, I'm trying to link myself back to the story that I was actually telling. The art of collaboration. Oh God, I'm getting old.
Yes. It chases us all down at some point or another, Alan. It's inevitable. As much as I try to,
I've got to go change my nappy. So,
yeah, I get you. All right. Well, Alan, I have enjoyed having you on the show today. Something tremendous. This has been a real treat for me.
The pleasure was mine, Tim, really and truly.
Thank you. But I do have one final parting question for you. And we like to call this our silly question.
Go for it. Let's be silly.
Okay. All right. Well, so we're actually really not all that silly, but we'll call it silly all the same. So my live show co-host, her name is Kathleen. And Kathleen was out and about with her daughter a while back. And somebody asked her daughter this question, but didn't ask it of Kathleen. And Kathleen turned into the girls from Family Matters. Oh, well, whatever that show was. Yeah, my brain just completely. Full House. There it is. Full House. Yeah, the twin girls. Turned into the Olsen twins. How rude. Boy, I slaughtered that. All right. But anyway, the question is, Alan
You'll
Katz,
fix it in post.
Nah, probably not. We're just going to let him see how bad I am at this. All right. So the question is
not even remotely true. I will fight that to the death.
All right. So the question is, Alan Katz, what's your favorite dinosaur?
Well, gosh, I'm tempted to say one of the leaf eaters because I'm 11, not a fighter, but you know, I'm going to get the name wrong. The Apteropteryx, the one that could fly.
Okay.
The flying dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
Because one, they could fly.
For sure.
And two, they became birds, so they're still here. There's no getting rid of them.
Right.
That's it.
Okay.
An Apteropteryx, I think is what they're called. I'm sure I'm massacring that.
You have done no better than I would have done, so we're fine. So.
But was it silly enough?
Oh, that's fine. Perfectly silly.
Good
Alan,
hope.
thank you so much for being on Pop Culture Addicts today. Where can my listeners go
Tim.
to find out more about you, your work, whatever you got coming up, your podcast, all that fun stuff?
The best place to find us is, well, where we're all congregated, there's a website, costardandtouchstone.com. My little company, Costard and Touchstone. During my very brief acting career, I performed in 2 Shakespearean plays. I performed the part of Touchstone in of Costard in Love's Labour's Lost, and the part of Touchstone in As You Like It. Both Costard and Touchstone are wise fools who speak truth to power, and that's what my little podcasting company is, a wise fool speaking truth to power. So Costard, COSTARD, and A-N-D, Touchstone, TOUCHSTONE.com. You'll find links to all the podcasts that we're making and coming attractions to some very cool podcasts that are are coming very, very soon. Some very cool podcasts.
Excellent. Well, I'll make sure we put a show link or a link that rather down in the show notes down below.
Please,
so that people can
thank you.
check that out. Absolutely. So if you're not familiar already, Alan's had a wonderful career in the entertainment world. There's a bunch of podcasts that he's linked to. You guys are going to check those out. So guys, thank you for watching and or listening today on Pop Culture Addicts. Be sure to go follow Alan Katz and everything over at Costard and Touchstone. Like I said, we'll have a link down in the show notes down below. Now, if you've enjoyed what you've heard today, don't forget to click that like and follow button. That helps us to continue to grow and attract more amazing guests like Alan Katz here today. And at the same time, if you're a pop culture addict like I'm a pop culture addict, well, then I invite you to please leave a review on your favorite podcast listening platform, or you can just put a comment right here on YouTube. That all helps out tremendously. So until next time, guys. And again, thank you to Alan Katz for being on the show. May the force be with you as you live long and prosper. Goodbye. Reference to any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by Pop Culture Addicts. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@pcapod.com.